So watching us today, we look very sporty.
Oh, yeah.
I've got on my NC State hat, shout out Carter Finley Stadium, Wolfpack all day. And Stuart,
I've got on my Durham Bulls hat. We went to a game the other night in Durham, and it was a good time.
it was really
Yeah,
fun.
minor league baseball team around here in North Carolina.
Yeah, Lila got to take a picture with Wooly Bull, which was really cool. We got to see everybody do the like sporting things. What
Yeah.
is it? What is it called? Like those games that they do? Um like the competitions
It's just little fun games that they do out on the
to
field.
like win
Yeah.
prizes. So, fun fact, my mom told me that when I was younger, I had to race around the track against Woolly Bull with like four other kids, I think, and I won. Actually, no, I think I did it by myself. And the bull, I mean, he always lets you win. And I won this big bean bag, but I think that I like got upset because my sister didn't get one, and I think we ended up getting two. But so anytime
Good
anybody
times.
says that I'm not athletic, just gotta remind them that I raised Wooly Bull and won.
Hey, and somebody recognized Southern Mama there.
Yeah, so shout out to all the Southern Mama lovers. If you don't know, Southern Mama is one of my little comedy skit personalities on TikTok. So Shelbs the stylist. We'll have all the information at the end of the podcast. But yeah, if you want to follow us on there, that would be great. And then maybe we'll see you at a Durham Bulls game. I need to get to a NC State football game this season too.
Or a Carolina game.
Maybe. We're a house divided. I need one of those stickers on the back of my car. But today's episode, we're not talking about the Carolinas, actually. We are going far from the Carolinas. And this episode is about traveling internationally for almost the first time. And I say almost because we have gone to Canada once. That was actually the first stamp on my passport. Was it yours?
No, I've been to like Caribbean places out of the country, but you almost feel like you ain't out of the country, and Mexico, Jamaica, stuff like that. But yeah, Canada, Toronto was pretty cool.
It was so cool. And just a little bit of our travel background together. And again, this is Stuart. He's been on a couple of podcasts with me. He's my fiance, and we've been together for about 2 years and friends for about 4. So we have been wanting to travel internationally for some time now, but um, I get this overwhelming feeling when you see people do the European summers and they're going to Japan and they're taking these crazy elaborate trips. I'll find myself thinking, how? How can they afford this? Why are they able to do this? I don't understand. Do they not have a job? Like I'll find myself getting jealous. I'll have like FOMO. And I just kind of thought that just wasn't something that was ever going to be attainable for me. I don't know if you've ever felt that way. Like, do you see on Instagram and get like FOMO of seeing people travel around and just get
Well, I'm glad we're going to Europe, and I'm glad we prepared the way we did. We are probably spending more money, but I would like us to be able to learn how to travel more efficiently. Not pay as much. I think this trip's going to cost a lot because it's our first trip to Europe, but and we wanted to be prepared for everything. But I hope after this we can be, we can probably go for half this amount. And learn all the tricks of the
be a
trade.
little bit more thrifty with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I kind of wanted to create this podcast with this specific topic just because I've kind of questioned how people are able to do this. And since we're spending a good little chunk of time traveling, we're going to Europe for just under 3 weeks. I think it's 18 days. So I wanted to be transparent and make this before we leave of kind of how we were able to do this. And like Stuart said, we do want to find a more cost efficient way. There are definitely significantly more cost efficient ways to do this. Full transparency, we have been preparing for this for about a year and a half. So I've kind of made a list of how I wanted to kind of cover this topic. to help you maybe see if something like this is actually more attainable to you than you think. So we're going to focus on like 4 main areas. So the preparation, kind of everything that we did to prepare for the trip, taking action. So the action items of once we've done our preparation stage, and then how we've spent the last 8 months. And then the last thing is just kind of things that we're anticipating from this trip. So before we even get into the official preparation, I'll just say start small. So for us, we started out traveling about 2 hours away from our house. We would go to the coast, we would go to Wilmington, packing there for a week or for a long weekend. And then we took it on the other direction and we started going to the mountains. And that's about a 5-hour trip, which is a little bit longer. You prepare a little bit more. And we started getting really good at stuff like that. And then I think our first big trip where we had to take an airplane was to New York City.
Yeah.
So, packing for New York City, we only took a carry-on. We were there for about a week or just shy of a week. That was a great first trip because I have been to New York quite a few times when I was younger. I actually stayed there and danced there a little bit. And then Stuart, it was his very first time.
Yeah. I'd never been. It was cool.
Was that a little bit of a culture shock for you, or?
It was. I mean, it was what I assumed it was going to be, but
Meaning what?
I assumed it was going to be fast paced and just a lot going on. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every bit of it.
I did too. I really like the city. I was nervous that he wouldn't like it just because it is very flamboyant. People are very gregarious and they're not shy. And I don't know if you can tell from the podcast, Stuart is definitely more shy and a little bit more reserved, but people in New York are not. And so that was just, I thought that was going to be a much more difficult transition than it was, but we actually felt very comfortable and kind of fell right into place. Like I felt very at home in New York, and
I felt like the subway was probably the most culture shock. Just it's such a different process. There's not a lot of explaining of where you need to go. When you're on the subway, you're like not looking at, you don't talk to people on the subway. Everybody looks away from each other. So that was a little different. And you get no service in the subway. So you have no clue if you've jumped on the right subway or not. That was probably the thing that got me most flustered.
But the great thing about the New York subways, because we made kind of a deal with each other that we were going to take the subway everywhere. We took the subway from the second that we landed. We actually landed in New Jersey for that trip, rookie mistake. And we had to take a train into New York City at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And then we took the subway everywhere. We didn't take a single taxi or Uber because we wanted to learn how to navigate the subway system, see how long it took us because it's in English and where we're going, they won't be in English. We'll give you a funny story about our first trip to New York subway experience.
You want me to tell them?
You can start it. I mean, tell them about right when we got there.
I was just thinking about that. Right when we got there, we like she said, we took the train from New Jersey and we were right there in Central Station. We jumped on the subway. And like I just said, you don't know exactly which stop you're supposed to be getting off on. I knew we were staying in Brooklyn, and we went one stop too far, and we got out and we were carrying our bags. And fortunately, Shelby's like, we can walk it. She was being a trooper about it.
We were in Chinatown.
And no, not in Brooklyn.
I thought we got off at the wrong stop when we were in Chinatown. There was smoke everywhere.
We got off on the wrong stop, but it was probably maybe a mile from our hotel. And you were like, let's just walk it. And it started raining. And we were rolling our bags and we finally got there. We were just pouring. And also to note, when we were getting out of the subway, we noticed a little bit of smoke. We thought that was kind of weird. But
yeah, it was very foggy and smoky inside the subway.
But we're like, whatever. And we get into the hotel and it's early. It's like 9 o'clock maybe. And we're like, please let this hotel let us check us in because we're soaking wet.
Yeah, check-in's usually at like 3 p.m.
And I go up to the lady at the front desk and say, we just got here. This is our first time in New York. We just got off the plane. Can we please go ahead and check in?
and everybody's like running around.
Yeah.
Like the staff is like running back and forth, and she's just like, how did you get here?
Yeah, she was like, "Sir, how did you get here?" And we're like, "Oh, we just got off the subway. We actually got off the wrong one, and we had to walk all this way in the rain." And she's like, "Sir, you need to get down on your knees and pray to Jesus that you are standing here now." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "There was just a shooting in the subway." And I don't know if anyone remembers that, but there was a shooting and people died, and we literally missed it by like,
We saw the smoke in
yeah.
the subway. That was Stuart's first 10 minutes in New York City is we were in the subway. I mean, it was crazy. It
I
was
think there was
hectic
like
in there,
bombs too. Like
yeah, they like put out smoke bombs and then started shooting in the subway, like in Chinatown, I think.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because everybody seemed very disoriented, but nobody was screaming. Nobody was running around. Like the energy felt off,
Yeah.
but it wasn't at like a level 10 panic that I would have been at. It was the craziest experience. So that was our first 10 minutes in New York City. Then later we were going to a Yankees game. As you could imagine, the D train, I think, wasn't it the D or the R maybe,
I think it was the R.
was completely shut down because they were doing an investigation. They did actually find the shooter while we were there, which was pretty cool. That they were able to, capture him. But the R train, I believe, to take us to the Yankee Stadium was shut down. So we go back into the subway to take the D, which I guess is the next best option. When the subway doors opened, people were falling out because they were so crammed in, like more crammed than sardines, into this subway because a whole line was down. So it was 5 o'clock, traffic, everybody was coming home from work, and people were cramming in. And I just looked at Stuart and I was like, if you can do it, I can do it. And so I had on a little leather jacket and like a purse book bag, and I put my purse underneath my jacket, and we just shoved our way in with all of these people. And I mean,
God. It was so stressful.
There is a person maybe 3 inches away from your face, and then a person right behind you, person to the left, person to the right, and you just feel people's breath on you. It was so stressful.
I wasn't ready for that.
And you're in there with everybody. You're in there with executives coming home from work. You're in there with homeless people. You're in there with some kookies. So I've grown up. My dad grew up in New Jersey. So I've been to New York multiple times. And he's always like, you just don't look at people. Like, you don't make eye contact with people. Leave people alone. Mind your business. Which is a lesson that Stuart hadn't fully learned yet.
I mean, we're from the South. We talk to people.
And you just wave and nod at everybody, and you look everybody square in their eyes. So there was a questionable man behind me, and Stuart was like in front of me, and he keeps looking over my shoulder at this man. And I'm thinking, stop looking. I don't know who's behind me, but I'm not about to turn around and look. So I just barely shifted my vision. I didn't even fully look over my shoulder, and he like saw the side of my face. And the second that he saw the side of my face, he was like, "Oh, hey girl, how you doing? How you doing? You look pretty good up here in this subway. You look pretty good." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I was like, "This is stressful." So I just didn't respond. I didn't say anything.
He was harmless, though.
He was harmless, but he just kept talking. I mean, he talked for probably like 5 stops. And then he saw my book bag underneath my jacket. He like leaned back. Some of the people started getting off of the subway. He saw my book bag underneath my jacket, and he said, "Oh, I didn't realize you were handicapped. You have a back brace." And he was looking at the people, because I don't know if you've never been in a subway, there are like very few seats like along the outside of the subway, and then most people stand in the middle. Well, all the seats were taken, and then all the standing room was taken. And so he was like, "Somebody get up, let this woman sit down. She's got on a back brace. She's handicapped. She needs help. She needs help." And I was just laughing so hard. I was like, "Oh my gosh." But he was harmless. So we had to give you that little entertaining story of our first time in New York City taking the subway, because that little tidbit of an experience hopefully will help us when we get to Europe. It'll help us kind of navigate their train station, subway station, transit, because one, we've never been there. 2, it's not in English at a lot of the places. And so we were hoping that by going to New York and kind of navigating that first, it was like a nice little step in the right direction. So yeah, outside of New York, we did go to Toronto, and I used my passport for the first time. So that check-in process was really easy, traveling internationally there. And then we took a train back from Toronto back into upstate New York. Which that process was also very easy. So I wanted to have experienced it once before I was in like the high stakes of going to Europe, but that was a very smooth transition.
We also went to San Francisco and Sacramento.
What do you say about those places?
Well, I had to go visit my sister, and
shout out to Allie, we love you.
That's right.
But and my baby Lily.
California, it might as well be a different country.
Where did you feel safer, in New York or in California?
Probably in New York. Well, we were in San Francisco, and you could just end up in the wrong part very quickly.
We did.
Yeah.
That was probably the most unsafe I've ever felt traveling to date. I mean, obviously when we do our recap from Europe, we'll let you know, but we at like 4:15, it was like drizzling in San Francisco, and we took a wrong turn, just kind of gallivanting around the town, which we did in New York all the time. Like we would walk 20, 30 miles easily in New York City, just get lost. And it was never an issue. We never got into like a super rough area. I mean, you would pass areas where you'd be like, don't want to be,
but hanging
out here too often. But during the day, you were fine. I mean, it's 4:00 in the afternoon, and we took a turn, and it was like a scene from a movie where like the clouds rolled in and it got really dark and gray everywhere, and you start looking around and the people are getting like, I mean, you would see people, I mean, I don't know if you can say this on a podcast. You would see people like shooting up on the side of the street.
I felt like I was in a zombie movie.
Yeah, it was. It was seriously like, it did not feel like there were people around you. It just felt like there were like these beings around you. It did not feel normal at all. It got so scary. And then I realized, like, I looked up and I realized there was like a line forming outside of this building, which I'm guessing is like a homeless shelter. And it was just about to be 5:00. And it's like first come, first serve. So then I started getting really nervous. I was like, okay, we're in a really bad situation. We need to turn around. As soon as we turn around, there's like this witchy looking decrepit woman holding this suitcase, and she throws the suitcase down and she just starts like curb stomping the suitcase and like screaming. She's like, rah, rah, rah.
There was some like, crazies.
Oh my God. Okay. So that was scary. We also saw a man in San Francisco. There was like in a trench coat, fully naked in a trench coat, and he would just open the trench coat and wiggle himself around chasing women down the street. And this went on. I mean, we were in an Uber at that time, but I was like, Lord, help us. So that was an experience. So we are in no way super seasoned travelers because we haven't gone internationally yet, but we have gone on a couple trips. And one of the ways that we did that was making trips that we needed to take anyway, kind of extending them out. So when we went to Toronto, we were actually having to go to upstate New York for one of my best friend Crystal's weddings, which is in Webster, New York. And Yeah, it was in Webster, New York. And so we were like, well, we're not that far away from the border, so let's just go to Canada first. So we extended that trip. Instead of just going to New York for the weekend for her wedding, we went on like Tuesday or Wednesday to Canada, and then Thursday and Friday we made our way to their wedding. So we kind of made the most out of it. And then when we went to Sacramento and San Francisco, I actually had to go for a bachelorette party for another friend, and his sister lives in Sacramento. So we were going to San Francisco. He met me in San Francisco, and then we made a trip out of it and went to Sacramento and visited his sister. So just kind of taking trips that you're already taking, or things that you're already doing and extending them out, if that's something that you do, is a nice way to kind of travel a little bit more. I feel like a lot of people that were at that New York wedding were jealous that we had gone to Canada first, because they were like, gosh, that's such a good idea. Why didn't I do that? So that's definitely something helpful. But let's go ahead and jump right into the international travel portion. So first, I want to talk about our preparation. So for this trip, again, I mentioned before, this has been in the works for us for about 1.5 years. But even before that, we had to think about where we wanted to go. So we toyed around with a couple of places. I say that, but then in the back of my head, I'm like, no, I knew I wanted to go to like Paris and London. So I knew Europe was going to be a great first international trip for us. One, because it's not as far, it's about 8 or 9 hours away from us. The other areas that I personally was considering, because I was considering this before Stuart and I ended up getting together. So when we started dating, I was already kind of talking about it and really excited about it. And he was just 100% down. So it made it a lot easier that he was just on board. But we considered Asia, we considered going to Africa, we considered several places, but again, Europe, I think, is just the first step away from being in America, if that makes sense. I feel like a lot more people do speak English. I knew that Japan was going to be a huge culture shock, and Africa would probably be a big culture shock as well. And just for the first trip, just kind of learning things, I felt like that would be more like visiting a big city here. Again, we haven't been yet, so we don't know. But deciding where is one of the big steps of the pre planning. Then we need to decide when we wanted to go. And the when for us kind of changed a lot. We originally were going to go in March of 2021. Do you want to talk a little bit about why we didn't go then?
Well, I had a lot of stuff going on at home as well, but COVID, that was still a big thing then. So they had different procedures in going to different countries. Um, it just seemed really complicated. And then on top of that, we had some personal issues going on at home. And so we had to push it off. And I think we made a good decision. I think we're more prepared now. And I think if it's hard to go to a different country when you have a lot of stuff going on back at home, because you can be stressed out and not enjoy yourself. And also, talking about when, we also had to decide on how long. And we wanted to do a long trip, a trip where we can forget about work, we can forget about everything and just experience, 3 weeks of almost living in Europe. I mean, we kind of told our agent that we didn't just want to be in, a high-rise hotel the whole time. We kind of wanted to have a little experience of almost living with the locals. So
Yeah, and so that kind of pushed us to September of this year. One, we didn't want to be fighting the crowds of, kids that had just graduated college and are taking a European summer trip, or just, all families that were taking their kids during the summer. A lot of European countries shut down in August, which is something that is important to note. If you're going to go in August, there's a lot of, really cool like mom and pop shops that you will not get to experience because they take the month of August off. So that was another reason why we didn't want it to be super hot. And like Stuart said, we wanted to kind of feel like we were living in Europe for these 2.5, 3 weeks. And so we just wanted to make sure that it was going to be the best time. And then COVID did play a huge role. We were going to several countries in Europe, and the testing protocols in each country was different. In one of the countries, you would literally have to wake up in the morning, go to a testing site, test negative before you could go to any museums, any monuments, any coffee shops. You would have to show them on your phone that you had a negative test for that day. So that entails waking up. You have to wait until the testing center opens. It just became a lot of a hassle. And for something that's supposed to be enjoyable and a vacation, it would just take up a ton of our time.
yeah.
And then God forbid one of us had tested positive then, and we would have had to stay in like a COVID center. I mean, it would have been awful.
And even recently, I knew of a couple who they went to Ireland. I mean, this was earlier this year in 23, and they got COVID while they were over there, and they had to stay an extra, 10 days just because of that coming back. So COVID's still playing a factor, but hopefully we'll be good.
I mean, we can't hold off forever. So we just figured now is as good a time as any. So once you decide on where you want to go, when you want to go, how much. Oh yeah, we wanted to decide about how much time you wanted to spend there, and then about how much it would cost to go. So of course, a trip to Japan for 3 weeks is going to be drastically different than a trip to Europe for 3 weeks. And if you're going to somewhere like Greece for 3 weeks, that's going to be drastically different than if you're going to a much smaller country. So you have to take all of that into consideration. So that was kind of our pre-planning. And then when we started to take action of our trip, we thought about things like, what are our top priorities of making this trip a reality? So the first reality for, I think, anybody would be saving enough money. We wanted to have a couple things. We wanted to have a comfortable enough savings for the trip, but we also wanted to have a comfortable enough savings just for our life expenses, so that that wouldn't be an issue either. And again, we took a year and a half to plan for this. So we just been kind of setting money aside, cutting back on eating out. We do not go out and drink, which saves us a lot of money. Our peers, I think, spend a lot of money going downtown and bars and stuff. We don't do that. So we were able to save a lot of money for that and just put those like little miscellaneous things that you would spend money on, instead of purchasing those, we put that money towards this trip because we knew that this was important to us.
Yeah.
Did you have like a number in your head of how much you felt like you would feel comfortable with going on this trip?
Well, when we were first talking about it, I was thinking like 5,000 a person. That was honestly what was in my head.
Yeah.
And then I realized, once COVID happened, that started just making things shoot up, the flights and everything. So right where we came in, it was, it wasn't surprising.
Yeah.
For that long of a period.
And just so you know, we spent about $6,500 per person. And then we got insurance as well. So it ended up being about $7,000 per person for this trip for 18 days. That includes our travel, flights, everything. So for us, we're flying into London, and then we're taking a train from London to Paris, and then we're taking another plane from Paris to the south of France in Nice, and then we're taking the fourth plane from Nice back to the United States.
And that included the rental car.
So yeah, that included all of that. That included the rental car, travel fee. It includes all of our hotels. We made sure that all of our hotels included breakfast. So that we have one meal included every day. And then we also
museum trips.
That includes our museum tickets. We have multiple tours and excursions, and I'll talk about that a little bit more too. But just so you know, it was about $7,000 per person that we saved in the past, year and a half or so. The next big action item to make this a reality was getting the time off of work. You just don't want to be in a situation where you're put in a bind, or your finances are going to be impacted by doing something like this. And this is something that I think is a reality for most people. Of course, I don't know if you guys follow Victoria Paris, but I follow Victoria Paris on TikTok. She's actually from Wake Forest, which is where I grew up. And she has just been in Europe for like 3 months, just chilling. But she is an influencer. Like, she has been doing brand deals while she's over there, going to fashion weeks, doing pop-up shows. And that's just not the reality for most people. So, Stuart, how were you able to get this amount of time off of work?
Well,
technical difficulty.
Well, fortunately, I've been with my company 16 years. So, and we get more PTO the longer we've been there. So I've been able to keep up with PTO, and fortunately I got a good team at work where I'm able to say, hey, I'm taking pretty much this whole month off, and everyone there has my back. They're like, oh, that's so awesome. Have a good time. We'll have you covered. I've got a really good team that's under me as well. So I think it worked out great for me. And I just told my boss, hey, doing this, and I told him, way at the beginning of the year. Matter of fact, I might have told him last year. So there was no problem with taking it off. What about you?
So for me, mine was a little bit different because I was actually transitioning. We mentioned before that we were thinking about going in 2021. So I was transitioning positions from one company to another. And so during my interview process, I actually told them that my plans were to do a 3-week trip internationally. And it almost became like part of our negotiations. Like I just wanted it to be part of my contract, was that I was going to be able to take this time off. I also work remotely, but I did not want the hassle of having to log in with different hours. I just did not want to do that. I wanted to have, like Stuart said, uninterrupted time where I felt like I lived in the city and just kind of were able to just explore and enjoy. So I did kind of have that written up from HR from the second I signed my contract with this company. And then as the date changed, I just worked with my manager, who is super helpful. He also really enjoys traveling. So he sent us a couple places to go, but, he's really big on life experiences. And, when HR was like, "What do you mean you're taking 3 weeks off?" He was like, "Nope, I kept all the emails. You guys agreed to this." And he kind of, advocated for me, which was important. I mean, I think it's important to show your employees that you care about their life outside of work as well. In addition to that, because I work more in account management, so I have accounts that are depending on me, that I have to train, that I have to monitor and, keep up to make sure that my team hits certain numbers. I really pushed hard to have my Q3 and Q4 numbers top notch. I wanted to be the number one on my team. And I was successful at that, just kind of making sure that my region was set up for success. Because the last thing that I wanted was for people to feel like they had to pick up slack while I was gone. Because then they're going to be less likely to want you to do something like this again. So in the future, hopefully, if I needed to take a more extended period of time off to travel or something like this, or who knows, if we wanted to maybe try to negotiate and work remote part-time or something for a smaller period of time, they would probably be more willing because they know that you're willing to put the work in.
Yeah.
So getting the time off from work, again, we told them well in advance, at least 6 to 8 months in advance. For both of us, it was over a year in advance that we had kind of brought it up, just because the date got pushed. But even before that, it was going to be a good 6 months in advance, just to make sure that everything was taken care of.
Yep.
So the last action item that we took, so the first one was saving the money, the next was getting the time off work, and the next big action item that we decided on was hiring a travel agent. Stuart has kind of like alluded to this when he says like she said to. He's talking about our travel agent. So this was a decision that we decided to make for a couple of reasons. One, again, it's our first time. So we wanted to be prepared. We also really wanted to, post-pandemic, make sure that we were making the best choices. It's hard enough to plan a trip like this, but with all of the restrictions and stuff that were going on, we just really wanted somebody that we could hold accountable that wasn't us, that could tell us some of the stuff that we needed, some of the stuff that we didn't need it. As Stuart mentioned, like the prices kind of spiked a little bit since we first started looking in 2021 or so, or 2022, excuse me. And so it's just, yeah, we vetted through several different travel agents, and we ended up going with Becky Olson.
I'm glad you did that.
And
because you almost have to interview.
You
agents.
definitely have to interview them. We had one lady that was like, "You'll be on a tour every day, 3 times a day, and you're going to be on a cruise ship." And I was like, "No, I'm not. You will never see me on a cruise ship."
Well, I think that's what you did when you were interviewing. Were they listening to you? Did they want to know what kind of person you were and what you wanted to do? And I think Becky hit the mark when she was listening to you and understood you don't want every second of every day with a tour guide and doing the most touristy things. And she
gave us free days. Like Like the day that we get to a new city is a free day that we can do whatever. We have a free day in the middle, like once we're more comfortable. And then even the activities that she planned for us, I know that she had planned for us to do like a perfume making class. I have a ton of allergies, y'all. I am sneezing constantly. And I was like, I'm going to get the worst headache if I'm sitting around all of these like artificial fragrances for hours. So I mentioned it to her, and then she said, "Oh, I remember you said that you're into vintage and jewelry. Would you want to do a jewelry making class?" Girl, yes, I would. So we're doing that instead. She's doing like a food tour with us. She got us we love food. She sent us, and then when she sent us our itineraries, one thing that I loved is she knows that I'm into vintage fashion. She sent us an itinerary of vintage shops for like each destination that we're going to, which I thought was above and beyond. And then she also sent us like some dessert options, which is another big plus for us. It's like ice creams and cakes.
Yeah. She, Becky, she really took care of us. I mean, she had everything planned out for us, booked all of our tickets, booked our plane tickets, booked the train, booked the rental car, booked absolutely everything you need. I didn't have to book one thing. And we actually just had a guide text us. We're like, what is this? And he's like, make sure you're in front of this building on this day. And it was one of the tour guides. I said we're not doing a bunch of tour guides, but with this one, I think it's a boat tour.
Yeah, he's taking us out on a boat in Paris.
So I love being on a boat, so I can handle that.
Water.
But we didn't have to do anything. I mean, that's worth money to me, is not having to sit there and go through different sites and see what the best reviews are and how do we book it and how do we keep up with it. I don't know if you can throw your screen on and show them the site.
And she booked all of our plane tickets. She booked everything. Yeah. I mean, she literally booked everything.
And another good thing about Becky too is that if something goes wrong, she's there. She's ready. You know, if our flight gets canceled, we just call her. We're not in a panic. She hooks us up and takes care of it. She, you know, we can use WhatsApp. She also has an assistant that works nights and weekends. So we felt really comfortable with our first time having this agent. So I would highly recommend getting somebody that would do something like this.
And she was great. I am going to just very quickly kind of just roll through some of her information just so you can see it. Because I know not all of you are watching. Some of you are just listening. So her name is Becky Olson. She's with Nova Vista Travel. She just started her own agency. I think she's actually based out of Raleigh, which is crazy because that's where we are too. We didn't even realize that until like a week ago.
And also something to throw in there too, Shelby, is she goes to Europe all the time.
Yeah. And had been post-pandemic. She breaks down all of the prices for absolutely everything for you, like from the rental car to the jewelry making class, the food tours. I mean, everything that we're doing, she has it broken down. If you are looking at this on your screen, you can watch it on YouTube or anything. But, you know, just like our flight ticket information, as soon as we get to one flight, we just click on this and there's our tickets. Yep. You can download this into an app. I mean, it was just so helpful. And then if you can see the little chat box here to the right, we can call or talk to her on the chat, just like texting. And we've been asking her questions. Like I've said, hey, I actually booked, we're going to be there for Stuart's birthday. So I was like, hey, I went on and I found this really cool, hotel on the French Riviera where I can rent these cool like pool cabanas and we can sit poolside and get spoiled for the day. And she was like, oh, I'll add that in. And so she went ahead and put the tickets in there and has the time that we're meeting each tour guide. And it's just really, really helpful. And like this section that I'm scrolling through here is just a huge list of everything that you can do in each city.
Yep. And on the app, you can also click a button that makes it offline. So all your tickets and your where you're going, your itinerary, your agenda is right there on the app. If you're walking around Paris or London or wherever and can't figure out where everything is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was $300. I don't know if we've mentioned that already, but it was $300 for us to book with her, and could not recommend her more. Yeah. Like that was the best money spent. And I'm sure that we'll be able to recommend her even more when we get there if we have any hiccups, which hopefully we won't. But I know she'll be on top of it. So I'm really excited to be working with her. That took a ton a ton of weight off of our shoulders.
Yep.
I
And
couldn't imagine trying to, even when I was trying to book those poolside like chairs for us to sit for his birthday, the whole website is in French. When you switch it to English, it's like this broken English that's not really English because we're in the French Riviera. So it's even smaller percentage of people that speak English. It was very difficult to understand.
yeah, and
So
if
she
you're
took that off of our shoulders.
if you're driving, we'll put this in the show notes too, all her information.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll definitely put her information. So she was a big part of the preparation and honestly took a ton of preparation off of our shoulders. Now, could you plan this trip by yourself? Absolutely. But if it's your very first time and you really want to relax and just know that things are planned out, I would highly recommend an agent. So for the take action items, we have saving the money, getting the time off work, hiring a travel agent. I guess if you're not hiring a travel agent, you can just put planning the destinations, but I mean, that's really going to take up a ton of your time if you choose to do it that way. So now that you see kind of the overview of how we were able to get ourselves to this position, we wanted to talk a little bit about the past like 6 to 8 months of just little things that we've been doing to kind of help us be successful on this trip. Stuart, what have you been doing every morning for 20 minutes?
I downloaded Rosetta Stone.
And Babel.
I didn't do Babel. I just did the Rosetta.
Oh, okay.
But well, it was a deal through my company. I saw it pop up, and it was like a lifetime membership for like $100. I was like, yeah, that's a lifetime. I can just learn any language. So I know the basics. Please don't ask me to say a phrase. But
How do you say, do you speak English?
uh,
Parlez-vous Anglais? Look, I didn't take no Rosetta Stone.
when you put me on the spot,
You're going to be on the spot in the country where we're
I
speaking.
know we and au revoir and bonjour.
He literally did this for like 15 minutes a day, every single day for 6 months. And I was like, how do you say this? He was like, I don't know.
I feel like I can
Look how
read.
red he's getting in the video.
I feel like I can read a lot more. Like I can make sense of signs
which is honestly probably the most important. Like when we're trying to like travel or, figure out where we're going on like a train or something.
Although on that app, it does do a good job at doing speaking portions. Like it does exercises where you listen, you read, and you have to speak it. And it will not let you go forward until you speak it correctly. But there's also a button you can press that takes away the speaking part. And a lot of times I did that because I was somewhere where I could not speak. I was like, out in public or whatever. It wasn't a good place for the microphone to hear me. So, yeah.
What else did you have to get?
Oh, I had to get a driver's permit for international driver's permit. And I did that with AAA. This was for mainly if you get pulled or if you get in some kind of accident. I don't believe you need this to actually rent a car, but you need it in case anything happens while you're driving. So I had to do that.
We got our passports. I got my passport in 2020, I think, through NC State, go Wolfpack. All alumni can go in and get their passports made there. You just sign up. The signups go really, really quickly. So I shouldn't even be giving you guys this information, top secret, but you can in the Tally building. So we just checked our passports, made sure everything was okay with that. And then we checked for global entry, which was something that we were interested in. The wait was like 2 years. It was like a 2-year wait for global entry. It was insane. And we would have to go to Charlotte and they were like, we'll give you 24 hours notice and you show up. And I'm like, are we joining the CIA? Like, I don't understand that. Hopefully, I've heard that sometimes when you have like a layover and you're waiting, you can just walk into the global entry like building and they'll just let you get global entry while you're there. That's actually something that would be a good thing to ask our travel agent again, which we might be able to get it on our way back, which won't be as helpful, but at least we'll have it.
Yeah.
Another thing that I did to prepare is I went shopping. Surprise, surprise. I wanted to get my European wardrobe in check. Packing was probably one of the most stressful things that I had to take on for this trip, other than saving money and not spending it to buy new clothes to pack. Because we're going to London. So, like, the layout of the trip is we're doing London for like 5 days. Then we're doing Paris for like 4 or 5 days. And then we're going to the south of France. So, for those of you who don't know, London is more like, a big city like New York or something, I would imagine, from what I've understood. And so is Paris, but it's also a lot cooler. So it's cool in the morning, cool in the early evenings, and people are very dressed up. So you need like dress pants or long jeans. I also think that there are rules in Europe when it comes to going into even museums that have religious monuments or anything. I don't think that you can show your shoulders, or you can't have on shorts or dresses. Like, I'm pretty sure that Europe is a little bit more strict about stuff like that. They just dress a little bit more elevated. So I just made sure that I wasn't bringing jeans with a bunch of holes in them. I was making sure that I had like a nice pair of dress pants. I'm bringing a nice blazer to wear over top of a t-shirt or a shirt that might have thinner straps, just in case. But then the second half of the trip, when we're going to be in the French Riviera, it's very beachy. It is, sandals or Birkenstocks and like a short dress and a bathing suit. So it was very hard. We're only bringing carry-ons. We might have to bring another bag when we come back. Wink, wink, nod, nod. But on the way there, we're only bringing a carry-on. So it was definitely interesting to try to figure out how to navigate your wardrobe for 18 days in kind of different climates, where it's going to be kind of cool and rainy in London and Paris. We needed like a rain jacket and an umbrella and jeans and closed-toed shoes. And then when you're in the French Riviera, it's going to be like in the high 80s. And I think in London, it was going to be like 55 to 70. And then you're going to go jump to the high 80s. So that was definitely something that I had to work on, and I practiced, and I've been taking pictures of my outfits and saving them in my notes app and just kind of planning like a core capsule wardrobe that I could bring, which I feel like was really helpful. And then Stuart's packing went really easy for him because I just packed it just to make sure. We don't want a Hailey Bieber and Justin Bieber situation where I show up looking stunning and he's in sweatpants. We're not living that lifestyle over here.
I did bring sweatpants.
I'm going to revise your packing. So yeah, we had to do that little bit of shopping. I did get a couple of new things. And then another thing about a trip like this is making sure that you have appropriate shoes. We learned this the hardest way the first time that we went to New York. We were walking seriously 20 to 30 miles a day in Jordans. Shout out to Nike. We love you. Not the best walking around shoe all day. My feet were literally bleeding. There was a picture from that trip that was hilarious. And I'm like sitting where you can kind of like see the whole city behind you.
It's on Lover's Lane.
And oh yeah, that picture too. So there was a picture on Lover's Lane where we had just walked out of a CVS. Stuart was right next to Dumbo ice cream. So Stuart was sitting on the sidewalk cutting shoe inserts. And I was like, where did you get that blade from? He was like, I found it on the side of the street. I said, we're going to die. I said, okay, this is his first time out of the house. And so then for me, I have a picture where I'm sitting in New York, beautiful skyline behind me. I had on such a cool outfit. Every comment on that picture was nice knee brace. I literally had to have on knee braces. I had paddings in my shoes. I had a Band-Aid on my heel, on my toe. My shoulders hurt. My head hurt. I was sunburnt. I mean, we just were not prepared to be outside and to be walking that much. Like, you almost need hiking shoes to be walking that frequently. So we took that seriously this time. We actually are going with Solomon's. So I don't know the exact Solomons that we have. We'll put them in the show notes as well. But we've been using them for probably 6 months.
Yeah.
Probably been using them regularly for about 6 months.
Good
And
shoe.
then they're a really good shoe. I was surprised. I wanted a pair just for like the fashion girly stuff, but then my pair actually came damaged and like the whole front toe had like the paint missing. And so we sent a picture and they just gave us a voucher for a free pair. And so I was like, well, I can wear them.
I'm normally a
So
Brooks
Stuart got
guy.
'em. Yeah, he goes through Brooks real quick.
But Brooks are not the stylish. Solomon, they got a little bit of style to them.
Yeah, they're all white. They don't have like big logos and stuff. Like even the Solomon name is in all white in the pair that we have. And then I used a TikTok hack of using the pink stuff to like scrub the white shoes and then set them outside and wash them. And it worked really well. So we've been using them for 6 months and I just did that to wash them and now they look like brand new shoes again. But they're worn in and comfortable. We've got our what is it called? Dr. Scholl's inserts in there.
Yeah.
To help
I have to have inserts in all of my shoes.
Yeah. Stuart has like medical prescription inserts in his shoes. He's got the flattest Fred Flintstone feet you've ever seen. But yeah, so just to kind of wrap up, wanted to do a quick check-in since we haven't gone yet. This is Sunday, September 3rd, and when we're recording this, and we will be back by the end of September. So we'll have to give you guys a follow-up. So Stuart, what are you anticipating for this trip? What are you kind of most excited about or the feeling that you think that you'll have on this trip?
I think after experiencing a whole different culture, and you get this feeling when you go to places like that. You kind of got it when you went to New York for the first time. And then you come back, you realize, wow, there's such a whole big world out there going on. And now I'm back to my little country life, but there's so much stuff going on in the world. And I don't know, I guess you kind of feel more worldly and you understand more culture, and it just gives you a different feeling. I don't know what the word is for that feeling, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to experience that feeling again. I am fearful that I will want to live there. Anytime we visit a city, I'm like, get on Zillow and let's see how much it costs to live here.
Should I move here?
Should I move here? But I've always seen myself as living a very nomadic lifestyle. So I am nervous that I'm going to want that even more. And I just don't want to not be satisfied with our little country life, which I am, but I know that I have this itching and burning desire to just travel and go around and like see everything. Yeah. So, that's one thing that I'm excited and nervous about, that I'm like that much closer to seeing more things and experiencing more things. But I'm also like, then when you come home, you're like, when can I do it again? So, and then, yeah, our next trip, we're definitely going to want to bring our little one with us. So this is our preparation just to get used to it, understand how to do it all. And then that next trip, it'll be the three of us versus the world.
That's right.
We'll be so excited. We talked about this last time, kind of adding in a couple little closing things for you guys. So we wanted to tell you some cool movies that we have seen to kind of prepare for our trip and get us in the Europe mood. Last night, what did we watch?
Midnight in Paris.
And it was so cute with Owen Wilson. Wasn't it Owen Wilson?
Yeah, Owen Wilson. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Definitely got me excited to go to Paris. We tried to watch Notting Hill. We made it about halfway through. And then we decided not to. And then I read the book Red, White, and Royal Blue, and the movie just came out on Amazon, and I'm excited to watch the rest of that movie. Y'all know I love my Red, White, and Royal Blue boys. That book was so cute. And then I've downloaded a couple books, on Audible to listen to on the plane. All right, do you have a book that you're listening to on the plane?
No. I usually listen to podcasts.
I have my mom listening to A Little Life right now, and she's like so upset with me because she's like, this is the saddest thing I've ever. I said, oh yeah, I couldn't even finish it. It was so sad. It was like putting me in such a dark place. And she was like, why did you tell me to read this?
It's a good book.
Yeah, it is a really good book, but it was a lot. So I have a couple books that I've downloaded that are a little bit shorter. I have one called The M Train by Patti Smith. I have A Man and His Symbols. And then I want to read Little Women So those are the 3 that I'm bringing. I'm not bringing any physical books, but I am bringing some Audible books. And then I'm sure I'll listen to the podcast if I go ahead and download them before I get on the plane.
Oh, I do have a book that I'm listening to. Actually, I'm re-listening to it. It's called, I believe it's 1 Second After. That's a pretty good one. You wouldn't like it, but it's...
What is it about?
It's based in North Carolina in the mountains, Black Mountain, and it involves like an EMP going off, and it causes all of civilization to not have electricity, or at least in the U.S. And it all of a sudden happens, so you have no idea what's going on, and it goes through like a whole year of adapting to this life, and you create a community. You have to keep people out. You have to worry about food, sickness. It's really interesting book, so I would recommend that one.
Stuart is an uncertified doomsday prepper. And this book is just going to re-up that feeling, I'm sure. No, it does sound like a good book, actually. Well, this was so fun. I'm so excited. And this was our longest podcast to date. We've made it to the 55-minute mark. So yay us. I have been getting a bunch of text messages from you guys that just says that you think that I have a good podcast voice. So thank you very much. And other ones just saying that you wish that it was a little bit longer, which was a little bit surprising. And then mostly we've been getting love. We've gotten a little bit of sass, but not much. So the mama had to clap back one time.
Hopefully this can be entertaining and educational.
Yeah, like we tried to, I mentioned this in the first episode of The Purpose, just to entertain and to like build a community. That's why we wanted to share stories like our first time on the train in New York and going to Sacramento. Like we love to share the stories and kind of paint the picture for you guys. But then also giving you the tools of making this a reality for you as well. So you're learning a little bit while you're being entertained, and that's kind of the whole goal. So we're excited. We are excited. The next time that you talk to us, we will be cultured. We will be practically European citizens, and we will be preparing for our engagement party. So yeah, love you.